Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Matt, and welcome to week 8 of the Language Learning Mastermind group. I'm excited to share some of my language learning progress and, of course, talk about language learning in general. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. And before we get started, I actually wanted to just thank everybody for all of their support. I really appreciate it, and thanks for all the comments. There's a lot of really seasoned and experienced language learners in the comments that have provided some very thoughtful analysis and opinions on language learning. So, um, you know, ever so often, just check out the comments in some of the videos. There's some great great advice there from people that aren't necessarily making YouTube videos. So I appreciate all the comments. I try to read as many as I possibly can, and if I don't respond, it's sometimes I just don't have a good answer for your comment, or you've said it very nicely and there's nothing more to add. But I really appreciate the support. I know that I don't. Have necessarily the best quality. At times I'm not a professional, YouTuber, and I'm not the most artistic person when it comes to thumbnails. And um, sometimes I talk about topics that I think are a little bit less fun or more serious. But I just want to try to help, how I can. And I hope that the videos have been helpful in your language learning or entertaining or something. But regardless, I really appreciate all the support, um, and just I hope that the videos have been helpful. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there before getting started. And now, with all that being said, let's actually get started. So, starting off with my Russian progress this week, it's going really well. This week, I think the biggest thing that kind of just the biggest kind of theme of this week was just things were very busy, and it was hard to get the language learning time in. But I managed to kind of persevere and go through that, and push through that. And I'm really close to my 7 hour goal for the week. But it was a challenge at times to get the time in, and that just kind of happens some days, some weeks where just things are happening in life, and you're busy, and it's just difficult to get that time in. But I think it's really important to just try to find the time, trying to just see where you can kind of get some quality language learning in, and try to meet your goals regardless of the circumstance. So, starting off with vocabulary, vocabulary went really well this week. Like I said, I think it was just a very busy week, so at times it was just challenging to get vocabulary in. But something that I did this week that I just think was overall, a good thing to do was just putting in a ton of concentration, and energy, and being really kind of diligent with the vocabulary process itself. So, being just fully kind of immersed and in the process, just being engaged with the process. I'm doing all the things that just help to kind of reinforce that vocabulary, whether it's saying things out loud physically, just having my full attention, things like that. And I think that when you kind of have that diligence, when you have that energy, and just kind of drive, and just kind of focus in your language learning, it helps you to have better results. So overall, I think vocabulary was good despite just things being very busy. I had a lot more of a just kind of a diligent focus to things, and I think it really paid off in the end of the day. So moving on to grammar, grammar was also good this week. Basically, I've decided to try to focus in on on a couple of areas, a couple of specific areas, and for me right now, that is just the major tenses: the present, the past, the future, and then and of course the endings and rules that go with that, and basically just kind of the some of the cases in Russian. So just the kind of the endings, for example, in the dative or accusative and things like that. And I don't want to kind of stretch myself too thin where I'm focused on too many grammar concepts. So right now I'm trying to narrow my focus a little bit. And I think that that's been helping quite a bit. Granted, it's still early stages, but I think that that concentrated effort really helps. Um, at least for me right now. And I think that concentrated effort helps kind of just about everybody with what they're doing in language learning. If you kind of focus in on a smaller range of things and items, I think you can get a lot more out of it versus just kind of spreading yourself across trying to do too many things at once. So I'm trying to do that with grammar, and I think it's going well, and I'm excited to see kind of what happens with this concentrated focus moving forward. And then lastly, listening was also good. Like I said, I just really wish I just put in a little bit more time into Russian this week. Like I said, I've got to my target, but I know I can do a lot more. And things just got really busy, and I know that I can just throw in a lot more listening than I have been doing. But overall, it basically has been following the same trend as the past couple of weeks where I'm noticing words here and there, getting comfortable with the sounds. So it's progressing nicely, but I think I can just throw in some more time. So not much to say here versus kind of past weeks, but it's going well for what it's worth. And so overall, language learning went really well this week. It was just very busy. And just kind of to talk about this a little bit, I think that there are going to be days where things are just tough, right? You're not motivated. Things are just very busy. And it's very easy just to kind of write off language learning for that day, right? Where you have a long day, there's a lot going on. You just think that language learning is just not going to happen. Or let's say you have 4 bad days in language learning, and you think that the week is just it's over, and just forget about language learning and start over again next week. But I think it's important to try to it's important to persevere. It's important to try to to get the language learning in despite the obstacles, right? Even if you're just super busy or you just have a lot going on, you don't know how you're going to get that time in to meet your goal. Try to find ways and solutions to get to that target. I think that in a lot of cases, it really kind of comes down to not whether or not you can or can't, but whether or not you want to, right? In a lot of cases, I just think for people, it's not a priority to get the time in when things are busy or other things are going on, and that's fine. We all have different priorities, but I would encourage you to challenge yourself just a little bit, because in a lot of cases, the excuses of oh things are very busy and I don't have enough time is it's just a matter of hey, let's make this happen, right? If it was super critical for you to get the language learning in, you would probably be more likely to find a way to kind of get the hour total no matter what, right? So I think that it's good to think this way, and I can be better at it myself, right? I'm not perfect at this or a master, but I think that it's good to just try to challenge yourself, right? To try to think and look at situations where, hey, am I making an excuse, and how can I actually kind of get the target for this week despite the obstacles that I am facing. So just kind of a little small topic there to talk about, but I think that just be careful about those excuses, and despite the challenges that you might be facing in a week or a day, or language learning is not going really well, ask yourself, how can I make it up in in the last 3 days where I have, a productive second half of the week, even if the first part of my week's been bad, or how can I get to my hour total despite being very busy? Just I think it's good to be very solution oriented in this regard. So, for the topic this week, I wanted to talk about being social in language learning. And this kind of, I think, is an interesting topic. I don't really see it talked about a lot. But I think that in a lot of cases, people are very solo in their language learning, right? And obviously, learning a language is a solo experience. It's a solo process, right? You have to learn the words on your own, learn the grammar, get better. But I think it can help to incorporate other people into your language learning where you can. And obviously, you don't have to do this. You can just kind of learn the language by reading, and you don't really have to incorporate other people. But I do think it can be very helpful in the end of the day to kind of give you an extra boost of motivation to make things a little bit more exciting, more novel. So I think it really can help. And in a lot of cases, I do think it is often overlooked. So what do I mean by all this? Well, I think that in a lot of cases, for many people, they don't have friends that are learning a language with them. Maybe their significant other is not learning a language with them either. They're not part of groups that are, interested in language learning, and it's this very solo process. And I think it actually pays a lot to just kind of have other people in your life, doing language learning, or at least to get involved. Whether that's just going to language learning meetups, being involved in online discussions, or even just something as simple as having kind of consistent conversations with a particular conversation partner. Just because when you make things social, I think that it just kind of adds, like I said, a layer of extra motivation and excitement in the language learning process, right? Think about any other hobby or activity out there. It just, in a lot of cases, is a lot more fun when you have people to do that activity with. For people that like video games, and I think I've said this example in the past, in MMORPGs, I think that a lot of the joy and fun in those games comes from playing the game with other people, right? The massive multiplayer component of MMORPGs, and unfortunately, a lot of MMOs today have become kind of these single player experiences, but in a lot of cases. It's that social element that made the game so much more fun. It doesn't even have to be MMOs; it can be any genre. Where you were playing with your friends or something like that, and it made the experience way better. Even outside of video games, I think that just kind of incorporating other people into those hobbies, maybe you have an experience with that, just made the experience a lot more fun. So why wouldn't it be any different with language learning? And like I said, you don't have to do it, but I do think it can help quite a bit just to kind of give you some more motivation. And when I look at kind of some of the videos out there, this isn't talked about a lot, right? It's oftentimes it's just like finding a conversation partner, um, speaking with natives, but there's not like this discussion about the social aspect of things. And I think that you just have to take a lot of initiative in the end of the day. And there's a lot of videos out there on speaking, but I think that very rarely do we talk about the social aspect of things, just communicating with others. If you think about language, it is a means of communicating with others. So, why not try to be more social in your language learning overall? And I think that it can be just difficult at times. It does require initiative. And I think that it's probably a big reason too why a lot of people kind of quit the language learning process early on. Especially if you're kind of a more extroverted social person, is that people just want to jump into speaking immediately. But you kind of need that vocabulary foundation, you need that grammar foundation. And in a lot of cases, people don't have anyone to practice speaking with. It's just not the easiest thing to go do, and they quit because they're all by themselves learning the language. And so, if you kind of think about it that way, I think it's very helpful, like I said, to try to be as social as you possibly can, right? Be involved in online discussions, get a conversation partner where you build a relationship over time. You get to know that person better. The conversation is more enjoyable, and you look forward to it more often because you're talking about interesting and fun things with this person, but in another language. Going to meetups or things like that. I really do think it can help a lot, but it does require some initiative. And I think that especially for some of the more social people out there, it can be frustrating that they're just learning words, they're reading, but they're not using the language. And I think that frustrates a lot of people, and that's why they quit. But like I said, I think that it really does help to be social where you can, and it can just add this level of motivation in the end of the day. And just kind of one last thing with all of that. I think that once again, sometimes we just don't want to, you know, deal with other people, right? And I'm not saying you have a big study group where you're learning words, and that's how you're learning, right? Obviously, learning words or reading is more efficient by yourself than in a group setting. But I think what I'm just kind of referring to is just trying to be more social with the language learning process. I do think it helps a lot in the end of the day. And when we look at just kind of the modern society, it seems as though in a lot of cases we're just becoming more and more socially isolated. There's less of a sense of community. there's kind of just issues all around on this front, despite being more interconnected with the internet, with social media. But the thing about it is that I think that in a lot of ways it's just isolated us. It seems like it's this great technological solution to connectiveness and social aspects of things. And um, while there is advantages of it, I do think that in a lot of ways we are losing something, with regards to community or being social and things like that. And I think that, like I said, not to kind of get too deep on this, but if you do try to make language learning a little bit more social with more people, just getting involved from, a community aspect of things, I do think it can help a lot. And I think that, to some extent with these videos, I try to create something like that. It's not perfect, right? There's only so much I can do from my end, but if I can create, for example, a series of videos where people feel more, um, you know, part of something by just kind of watching a weekly series, or can kind of connect via the comment section, something as small as that, and it helps just a little bit, then I think that's a great thing. Obviously, it's not a perfect solution, but it's just something that I think can be helpful, right? And it's kind of part of a motivation behind this weekly video series. But anyways, without being too long-winded here, I just wanted to just say that, once again, try to be more social where you can. Even if it's just something as simple as just getting a kind of a frequent conversation partner to practice speaking with. I think these things can help a lot in the end of the day. So, kind of going into a weekly review now, how did your week go with language learning? What were some of your victories, and what were some of the things that you struggled with this week? So, for example, for me, I just, it was really difficult to get the time in with language learning, but I found ways to kind of get that time in, and get my language learning in regardless. So, what were some of the things that you did great? It's always important to look at what you're doing right and to kind of double down on those things, and of course to always pat yourself on the back, but also to look at some of the struggles that you're having. Maybe it's something that you faced today or this week, or it's been a constant trend over the past couple of weeks, and what can you do in terms of solutions to kind of fix that problem, right? To make it better, to be more efficient in your language learning. Don't overlook some of the reflection that we can do to make your language learning more fun, more effective, over the long term. So, how did your week go in language learning? And so, just to expand on that a little bit, let's kind of try to do a different exercise this week, and try to add some concrete elements to this review process. And I would say first, let's just list three things that you're doing right in your language learning. What are three things that are going really well, and just some positive aspects of things. So, for example, for me, I like the fact that I've been very consistent every single week with kind of getting in my 7 hours of language learning. I feel really good about that. I think that another thing that's been going well is that I'm getting so much better at typing in Russian. That's been great. I'm very surprised at the speed of my progress in that regard. And the third thing is that I'm really happy with my vocabulary progress in terms of picking up new words, just getting better at vocabulary overall. So, what are three things that are positives in your language learning? And they could be big things, it could be small things. I think it's just important to take inventory on those kind of items. And then, of course, what are three things that you could do better in your language learning as well, right? So for me, I think that I can actually get more language learning in every single week. I think it's been difficult at times, and it's something that I can definitely do a lot better. I think another thing is that I can listen a lot more. I have talked about kind of some of my rationale for listening. Has been kind of that most of it's just a wall of sound right now, and I'm going to ramp it up a little bit later. But that's not the best answer to that. So I think that I can ramp up my listening a little bit better. And with grammar, I think that in some instances I've been a little bit too broad in my grammar review and grammar study. So I'm trying to be a little bit more focused. So I think I can be more focused in my grammar, and that's something that I can improve on. So just with an example like that, just think of three things that maybe aren't going so well, and try to come up with solutions about how you can make them a little bit more fun, a little bit better, or just something to think about a little bit more, as time goes on in terms of just trying to deal with those problems and just be a little bit more efficient in your language learning. And that's what I had for the week. So let me know what you think. How has your language learning been going? What are some of the challenges and obstacles that you're facing? What are some of your victories? And what's your plan for the next couple of days and the next couple of weeks with your own language learning? And with all that being said, I will see you all in the next video. Take care.